How's it going, everyone? Welcome to a Football for Fun clip. We normally live stream on Wednesdays at about 9 Eastern, 8 Central. So if you really enjoy this content and don't want to miss a live stream, please feel free to subscribe to our channel. We're trying to grow our channel. We recently got 100. We are very proud. With that said, enjoy the clip. Yes.
Man,
So Aaron Rodgers did sign with the Steelers. I believe it's like 1 year, like 13 million with or something like that with like bonuses, incentives, whatever. Obviously it's been discussed on this channel. I had a video and a short out, I believe, and so it is old news for all we know since we kind of knew it was going to happen. It for some reason it took him a while to sort of I guess put the pen to paper, but what are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers? Since I don't think we have those documented necessarily.
yeah, no, I've got some thoughts. First of all, I don't think it really changes much in the grand scheme of things. I don't believe Aaron Rodgers is going to revert back to his MVP form and suddenly the Steelers can win a playoff game. Maybe they will, I don't know, but my guess is they'll be mediocre once again. It's definitely good for the Steelers because Rodgers was easily their best option out there unless they wanted to go for Kirk Cousins, the more expensive option. But they got Rodgers for cheap, and they'll be mediocre probably this year. I am worried long term that they don't have much of a plan behind Rodgers. I'm not really sure what they're going to do next year. Maybe they'll draft somebody in the first round. But I don't know. I think short term it's the smart move. Long term, I really don't know what they're doing in Pittsburgh. And as for Rodgers taking so long, I've been in the minority this whole time. Like I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. If he's busy. It's a big decision to make. Let him take his time. I know it annoyed a lot of people, but it's his decision, right? And it seems like he got married at some point this offseason. So that's kind of a big deal. Pretty important. Pretty good reason to take your time making a decision about your career. And he's had some other personal stuff that we don't really know about yet. So I would say to all the haters, like, just chill a little bit. He went to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh believed he was coming the whole time, which respect to them for never wavering in that belief. I don't know. I think it worked out about as well as all sides could hope, but long term, I still don't know what's going on in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you there. I think it is kind of strange to think that I think a lot of people were thinking that whether the Steelers were rolling out Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph, that they're probably going to go 9-8 and get bounced in the wild card or miss the playoffs. I think it was funny. I'm pretty sure like the Steelers Super Bowl odds or whatever like didn't budge when Rodgers joined.
That's
Now that
wild.
might have been because the odds were factoring in the assumption that Aaron Rodgers was gonna join. So I don't think it necessarily means that like I think Aaron Rodgers is miles and away better than Mason Rudolph, but I do think it is kind of funny that a lot of people didn't think that would necessarily change things. But yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I do think for now it's a decent solution. If some of you didn't see my quarterback rankings videos, y'all should check it out. But I had Rodgers ranked at this as the 17th best quarterback in the league, and this is these were like factoring in sort of like basically this season who would I want as my starting quarterback, not like for like one game or like 5 years down the line. Obviously, if it's 5 years down the line, then there are many guys I'd rather have than Rodgers, right? But um, right now, I had Rodgers as the 17th best quarterback, or the 17th quarterback I would most desire to have, and I think the Steelers get the 17th best quarterback in the league. Like get that type of production, then they're gonna be, they'll be in a pretty decent shape. Not necessarily to make a Super Bowl run, but they should be able to win 9, 10 games, play some
Right.
defense. He can make some connections to DK Metcalf, and run the ball, and yeah,
I
just
mean, look
kind
at
of
look at
like.
what they've done with what we presume to be less over the past few years. They had Justin Fields, they had Russell Wilson. Who did they have before Russ? I don't honestly.
Kenny Pickett?
It was Pickett, right? Okay, they went to the playoffs with Kenny Pickett, and you think that they're gonna be worse with Rodgers? I mean, I've seen crazier things, but they're probably gonna
Yeah,
be
Mace.
decent at least. If he's
Hmm.
mediocre, not terrible, I would expect Pittsburgh to be decent. They've got a good team overall. You're going from the crappy Jets organization to one of the more solid, stable organizations. Wide receiver group excluded there, but and Pittsburgh is a much better place for him to be.
Yeah, for sure. And Yeah, Mason Rudolph had a winning record as a Pittsburgh Steeler, so it does kind of go to show that the Steelers are a really good organization in that sort of realm. Again, I think a lot of Steelers fans start to get mad that like, oh, we're, Mike Tomlin's like not non-losing record streak is so stupid. Like, what are we doing? And like, I agree to an extent. On the one hand, I can see like if you're going 9-8, 10-7 every year and getting bounced, then like I mean, it does seem like you're never going to win a Super Bowl. But on the other hand, think about how many teams, and no disrespect, probably including your team, that
Definitely.
would kill to have that type of production
That's what I want.
every single year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to have like a chance because like ultimately, now I'm saying like it does seem like they don't have a chance. The truth is, once you make the playoffs, there is a theoretical chance that you make a run and go to the Super Bowl. Now, is it very very unlikely if you're rolling out Russell Wilson, who's washed, or like Kenny Pickett? Then like probably. In fact, I think in that playoff game that was Mason Rudolph though, right? Or was it someone else? It's like I know Kenny Pickett.
I
I'm thinking
thought
about
Pickett played
2023.
I thought Pickett played the playoff game.
I think no, I think you're right. Or I thought it wasn't. Maybe it was Pickett. I thought it
Well,
was
I think
Mason Rudolph,
his
honestly.
rookie season it was Pickett, and then the year after maybe it was somebody else because he had been
Yeah.
benched at,
No,
at a
you might
certain
be right.
point. So
But all that to say, you are rolling out a bunch of mid quarterbacks. It does seem like just ever since Ben Roethlisberger retired that they haven't really been able to figure out the long term solution at quarterback. Like they thought it was Kenny Pickett.
even
Apparently,
I
he's
would
not
go
that
back to
good.
before he retired. They should have had a succession plan in place, knowing he was going to retire at some point, and the guy was old. You knew he was going to retire, and you
Yeah.
had no backup plan. So they should have been planning in advance, and they didn't. And then they have had no. Well, to be fair, they did draft Kenny Pickett in the first round. They must have believed he could be a franchise quarterback, but that's really about it since Big
And
Ben.
remember, remember Kenny Pickett got drafted like 20 something. I forget, it was like 26 or something like that. Kenny Pickett was the first quarterback taken in a very depleted draft class. Like this was a draft class where like Malik Willis was projected to go like 2 overall in some mock drafts or something like that. And like he didn't even go in the first round, and like it was a very like I mean, did anyone was Brock Purdy in that draft class? I mean, he was like
Yeah,
last overall,
he
so
was the
obviously.
last overall pick in that draft class, and he's the only quarterback who's proven to be any good.
Yeah, but I think the top prospects were literally Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis.
And Matt Corral was also up there. Carolina drafted him.
Yeah, so this was probably the worst quarterback draft class in recent memory, and yet the Steelers kind of like reach for a quarterback. But no, to your point, I do agree that like you need to do like kind of like what the Green Bay Packers have done with just like drafting Jordan Love in advance. Even the Patriots, like when they drafted Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, obviously, that didn't like they didn't realize how goated Brady was going to be into his 40s, but they had that succession plan in
Right.
place. I guess when he actually left, like they didn't really, which is a whole other sort of thing. But you always want to draft someone if you think your quarterback might be kind of like falling off here in a little bit.
You got to
What I
plan ahead.
heard,
You just have to.
yeah,
There's no more
right.
to it.
What I heard was that I could be totally making this up, but I believe that Ben Roethlisberger got upset when the Steelers drafted Mason Rudolph, which is, I mean, it's understandable. Like veteran quarterback gets upset, and then like after that, the Steelers just didn't draft a quarterback, like ever since, just to like keep Ben happy, or maybe they thought Mason was the guy. I'm not exactly sure, but I do definitely agree, and it'll be interesting. Like I feel like there could be some teams, some teams with like some older quarterbacks that are still theoretically like exiting their prime. I'm thinking about like the Rams or like the Cowboys or you
Raiders.
know, uh
Gino's only going to
yeah,
be
I
there for
mean
so
Raiders
long.
up there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean just some of those teams that like just have like these quarterbacks that are like they're like in their like maybe like mid 30s and they're still playing pretty well theoretically, but there's not really. I mean, no one's saying Joe Milton's a succession plan, right? In Dallas,
I
so
guarantee you there are Dallas fans saying that. I guarantee it, man.
yeah, right. Same guy, same fans who said that Trey Lance was gonna be, the future of the Dallas
Oh, man.
Cowboys.
The same fans who say it's their year
Yeah.
this year.
Hmm. Yeah, totally. So it is something you kind of want to think about in these sort of circumstances, is like just kind of drafting that successor, because if you don't, then like you're kind of relying on free agency. Then it's like okay, do we want to like break the bank for like a Kirk Cousins or something like that? So it's always really interesting.
Yeah, I agree, but we'll see how it works out for Pittsburgh. Uh, it's always possible Rodgers is really good there. I wouldn't bet on it like they are, but you never know. This is a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the greatest of all time. Maybe he's gonna have another really good season in him, right? It's not impossible. No one's really gonna be predicting it, but it's still possible. Still one of the greatest to ever play.
Yeah,
So you can
true.
hate on the guy all you want, but I don't think he was that bad in New York last year. I think everyone else was pretty
No, I
bad,
think
but
no, and
he
I
was
think
average.
no, to your point, I think down the stretch he played pretty well, is my understanding. I think most people don't realize that because they didn't watch the Jets, but I think once Rodgers got like acclimated and like kind of like time to like sort of like rest up and things like that, he kind of like played a little better.
Sure.
But I think where Rodgers could struggle is if he's like not getting protected and things like that, which I think the Steelers have a good offensive line. So
Yeah.
I think if Rodgers is like well protected and can just kind of like play to the system, he'll be solid. Like I think he's probably the 17th best quarterback. Even if he was like the 20th, like I think you can win with that theoretically. So
One thing I am
we'll
worried
see.
about with that offense, though, is I'm not sure how good their running game is going to be. And we know Pittsburgh loves the run game. But they lost Najee
Mhm.
Harris, who I don't think he was that good, to be honest. And they're going to start Jalen Warren, who was the backup to the guy I just said wasn't that good. So they drafted a guy from Iowa in the draft. I don't know which round it was, but they're going to have to hope that he can run the ball pretty well. Um, but honestly, I have more hope for Rodgers in Pittsburgh than I did with the Jets, just because of the organizational differences. Like the Jets are a dumpster fire, usually are. Pittsburgh is solid and stable, but Pittsburgh's always, in recent memory, they've been very dry on offense. They've been a pain to watch. I hated watching any Steelers games. It was not enjoyable. But I'm imagining Rodgers is not going to come in and just stand for that. I feel like he's going to want it to be more exciting because he can sling the ball, right? And he's pretty accurate. He takes care of it. I don't think we're going to see a ton of turnovers in Pittsburgh. I don't know how many touchdowns we'll see, but it can't be worse than last year.
Mhm.
That's kind of where I am on that. There's no way the offense is worse than it was last year. I would expect it to be at least a little bit better. And as long as you get TJ Watt back on defense, I think the defense is going to be
Mhm.
great again.